Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Wednesday of They Say. My name is Allison McFarlane, your personal branding expert, and I have so many women that I admire near and far. But I was so honored when I got to meet this superstar because she embodies a class, a grace, and elegance that I have never seen before in her particular realm of influence. So I will let Miss Denise go deeper into what she does, but it speaks volumes to who she is. That when I saw her online, she's exactly who I saw online in person. So I am grateful to have her on They Say. I am honored that she said yes to me. So Denise, please tell us all about the magnificent things that you've got going on.
Oh, wow. Thank you for this platform, Allison. Thank you for having me here and for your kind words. I think that, and we'll get into a lot of this today, we have the opportunity to share wisdom, but then also to influence and to learn from other
Right.
African American women and women in general in these spaces. I currently serve as the public relations executive director for a 2-year institution here in Georgia. Beyond that, I also lead in ways that allow me to be the first African American board member for the Arts and Sciences department at the University of Georgia, my alma mater. But then I also work in the DEI space, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am a certified consultant and then also a certified speaker, teacher, and coach through John Maxwell Leadership Academy. And then I'm an author, philanthropist, and I oversee the scholarship for the Ruby D Legacy of Sisterhood Scholarship. Some of the things I do.
Oh, just a few. No need to get too excited. Just a few, but I think that's so. All those things are so powerful, and it really speaks to just your influence. It's far greater than I even think you realized. So I'm excited to have you on here and just kind of dive into some topics that I feel like we don't get a chance to often talk about or really get a behind the scenes on. So you have an extensive career in public affairs, and something that I admire and I want to say publicly because I've already told you privately, it's a grace and a class that you have in that area where I can see how seamlessly you're able to go across the aisle and really go across the aisle and be that bridge. So how did that come about, Denise? Because I feel like that's something that's truly missing in that realm.
Well, I started my career years ago in the public sector with the Department of Human Services here in Georgia.
Mhm.
I worked under some incredible folks who were leading the charge at that time for all things human services. And so I think learning to lead, learning to handle public relations and communications, also with a heart for community and a heart for public, making sure that people not only have access to the benefits that they might qualify for, making sure that we're meeting ADA requirements, and just kind of having a heart for communicating in ways that empower people at a time when they feel kind of maybe at their worst. That's the lens I led with. And so as I've moved on and progressed into other spaces, that initial indoctrination of lead with a heart first, lead with making sure that you're serving people first is kind of where I sit.
I think that's powerful. So let's dive into the more of a people first approach because I feel like those are your best leaders. So as you have grown and just continue to cultivate that, how is that leading with people first really help magnify and amplify your mission?
Well, I think people know. People know when you're phoning it in. They know when you're dialing it in. They know when you're not being sincere.
Yes.
And when you're able to really not just understand and connect with people, but also really truly know where
Mhm.
people are coming from, which is what we were charged with doing.
Yeah.
Meet that customer where they are and really dig in and kind of know how to best serve them. People know when you're doing that. People can feel your heart. People can
Mhm.
feel your energy.
Yeah.
And when you lead in ways that let them know, I'm not here for my own status or I'm not here for my own agenda to solve.
Yes.
I'm really here to serve you. I think you really work your way across the aisle. You really get to the nitty gritty of what it is that people are going to admire about you. And guess what happens intrinsically is when people know you care about them, they care about you.
Yes. So talk to me. I want to dig in a little bit about that cross the aisle because I think that's so important. And I believe that's a key piece that's missing right now. So in leadership, how do we bridge ourselves to be able to go across the aisles effectively?
Ooh, now that question's loaded. And I think it's going to differ, of course, in whatever setting that you're in, but kind of as key takeaways for in
Yes.
any setting that it might work. Working across the aisle means there's I'll still say agenda, but there's a something that we're looking to work towards that's larger than either of us, right? So when you have and you're bringing forward the things that you've got to accomplish on your end of things, and
Mhm.
you're maybe having an opposing side that has a different agenda,
Yeah.
when we can figure out those commonalities, those links that are going to be pertinent to everyone, that's when you
Mhm.
start to have synergy. That's when you're going to start to move the needle forward.
Mhm.
Until people feel like you're invested in a way that appeals to them or understands them, they're
Yeah.
not going to work with you. But
Mm.
if you can find that commonality and then find a way to show others, and if we pull these things together, it's going to actually help us and ABC, put that
Mm.
C in there, not just the A and the B.
Right.
People are more, going to lean towards what it is that you're talking about because they know that you've done the research. They know that you've done your fact finding. They know
Yeah.
that you're leading with heart. And then if you can put all of those things together, you're going to win.
Oh, that's powerful. I like that. If you can put all those things together, you're going to win. I believe that, and I live in that space because I believe something about a leader that leads with their heart. It's something you can't even put into words because those are the type of leaders where you want to roll up your sleeve and you want to make sure that there's success because of the fact that you feel like they're just as invested as in what you're doing as you are. So you want to amplify and make sure that they look good and that they are getting the exposure that they need. So I agree 100% on that.
Yeah, and even in a corporate setting, every person that I've supervised,
Yeah,
and fingers crossed, I think they would say this. I feel comfortable that they would say this.
I believe that
They
too.
know that I'm putting them first. So, for
Mhm.
example, if you are working on my marketing team, or you're working on my PR team, or you're working on my comms team, I want to make sure that you're certified. I
Mm,
want to invest in you in ways that make you feel really good about the work that you're doing, that make you feel like even if I were to lose this job or find an opportunity somewhere else, whatever that dynamic might be, I'm qualified to
yeah.
move forward in a way that advances my career. And so my employees typically will do just about anything for me because they know she's going to stand up for me, she's going to go to bat for me, and she's going to make sure that I'm credentialed. And I think that if folks would spend more time in management in making sure that you're developing the person
Yes.
in ways that they better serve you or they better serve themselves as they move forward in their career, and they know that you care about those things, they will go to bat for you. They will do things, they will come up with things you never even imagined,
Yep.
simply because they like working for you.
And that's powerful because that is so true. And something I like that you said, well, but I'm going to piggyback on this. So recently I went to a conference. I think we talked about this privately, where it was a leadership conference. But on one of the speakers, and the messaging was the time is now. But one of the speakers, and a lot of the speakers kept saying how there is a lack of leadership in the world today and that we need leaders. People are looking for those to lead us ahead, be clear with their communication. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times, and I'm coming from someone who's been led very well and also someone who's been led very poorly. I've had
Yes.
the unique position of sitting in both of those seats to determine this works, that doesn't work, so that I could better
Mhm.
inform my leadership style,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
Um, I think that folks get kind of embodied in the whirlwind of what needs to get done and so focused on being kind of the tyrant who is checking off boxes that they forget again that human centric element of leadership.
Yeah.
And when that's happening, you're going to have more of a factory. You're going to have more of people may get the work done for you, but they may not be happy about it, or it may not be their best, or
Yeah.
it may not open the lens for thinking creatively out of the box. And
Mm.
so the leaders who are operating in that vein, I would seek to say to you, yes, they may be checking off boxes, but they are really limiting the organization in what you could accomplish otherwise. And so I think in order to be an effective leader moving forward today, especially working with the youth of today who are coming in, no more do you have those loyalty folks. I'm going to call them loyalty folks, like
Yes.
my parents who
Yes.
needed their good government job or whatever it may have been, and they stayed in those roles until they retired. The workforce of today says there's more out there. I don't have to deal with a supervisor who is not treating me the way that I should be treated, who is not providing me the opportunities I should be provided. And so if you fall into that parameter, you're going to have high turnover.
Yep.
I typically don't have high turnover for my staff because I treat them well.
Yep.
And even when there are additional opportunities, they're going to really question, am I jumping out of the skillet into the frying pan? You know, will this be more money, but I won't like my work conditions? They always have to ask themselves that question.
That's powerful. And I just want to put a pin in right there, because I can also speak to this personally. So before getting in, so communications is my background. I went to college for communications and marketing, but it's finally, after like 30 plus years, I'm finally using it, which is kind of funny. But that's usually what happens. I don't know how many of us kind of land on a college career and a degree and actually go straight into it. But I can honestly say that my experience has been, I've had the best of leaders and I've had the worst of leaders. But I agree that this generation, because I can speak to it for me personally, there's certain things we're not going to be as loyal as our parents, because we understand that opportunity and how to maximize those opportunities. And we understand that we're not just going to stay in a toxic work environment just to collect a paycheck. And my parents are not, they definitely like, Allison, what's wrong with you? But I just helping them understand that that when you're good at what you do, and you want to be led and you want to learn from leaders like yourself, you position yourself to be able to do such. But when you feel like you're in an environment where your creativity is being zapped and your voice is being zapped and you're being suppressed to really kind of shrink who you are for the sake of a leader's ego, it's hard to do. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to do.
Very hard to do. And at all levels, I would seek to say. It's not even just at the entry level, at all levels.
Okay.
That is something very difficult to grasp. And from a communication standpoint, I believe in empowerment, and I believe in communicating that to my staff in ways, and that's upper management as well as, you know, those who are under my supervision. I communicate up and down in ways that people really kind of know what they're getting with me. And they know that we're going to put our best foot forward. We're going to think outside of the box. We're always going to be looking for ways to empower each other in ways that make us feel well. The other thing I like to do as well is communicate to my team. We want to make sure that you have work-life balance. And I know that sounds really weird in government entities, but I believe in it strongly. And so if there are opportunities, say, for you to work remotely or to work from home, may not be every day by the nature of what it is that we do, but if those opportunities come up, I want to make sure that you have open access to them. I want to make sure that your family is first, because if you're not doing well at home, you're not going to do well with me, and that's not going to work. Right. And so we look for the holistic person and communicate it at that level. We also share across the team so that if you do have to have time, you've got leave is stored up. You should be able to use it, but use it in a way that we're not having to call you still while you should be taking care of yourself. And so we're going to streamline across our teams so that everyone knows what everyone is doing at any given time. Let me say that correctly. But not in ways that feel competitive, right? I don't want you competing with one another. I don't want you trying to make someone look as if they are not pulling their weight because you're stealing their assignment, if you will. All of the behaviors, the toxicity that we've seen in other places, my teams usually don't experience. You experience being able to take care of yourself, to take care of your family, to share the work in ways that are beneficial to everyone.
So we just need to take you on tour. like, and have you do leadership for America, like the United States, leadership of the world with Miss Wells, because that is powerful. Because oftentimes, and maybe it's because I have this type A personality, which I'm trying to work through. I feel like the whole thing of work-life balance is almost a myth, but that might be because in my mind, and so I've come out of the financial industry for 15 years, but it was hard to have that balance, because something I heard that you said that I've never heard before is how you communicate. Like, you guys are not just playing telephone, you're actually living it. So everybody is getting the same consistent messaging across the team. So I believe that's how you're able to have a true balance, because the messaging is not changing. Is that correct?
That's correct. And if your communications,
Yeah.
it would serve you well to communicate well in your team, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we make a habit of that. Everything is open, everything is engaging. We've created a repository. So, for example, if there's a particular asset that you work on specifically, it's in the repository, so that, for example, this is a real life example.
Okay.
You need to take maternity leave.
Yeah.
We're not at a deficit because you're gone. We have access to that particular element. We don't have to recreate it. We can take it from where it is and do whatever needs to be done with it while you're out enjoying your new baby. So I believe in that and it's the easy solution. Just have a repository. Done.
That's why I said we need to take you on tour, because I promise you, in all my years, I've never heard this before. And I can only think of, there's one leader, well, two, that I can think of that made a process so seamless that we would go to war for them in all the management that I've had. So to hear you say that it's really a thing of communications, which my dad kind of goes with me. He goes over with me all the time. He's like, people don't communicate these days, Allison. They just assume, and they don't really communicate what they really want. And I'm like, okay, Dad, but it sounds like he might be right. So I might have to call him and tell him he's correct.
Yeah, it's easy if you make it easy. If you're dedicated to making it easy. Now, does that mean we haven't had some sour apples?
Right.
I mean that. But I've been so clear in kind of what my expectation is up front, and also in making sure that I'm consistent with the delivery of how I respond to certain events, that people are just very aware that this is how this goes. And if for some reason, it's your style of working that you don't want to work seamlessly with us in this way, I'm not punitive about that, but I am very careful with making sure you understand this may not be a great fit for you. Let's talk through that. Let's talk about what it is you really would like to be doing, and let's figure out how to get you in that. And so even if you don't work well with my team, again, being kind of that human-centered, usually when someone is not working well, there's something else going on.
Right.
That's outside of, external to what it is that's happening in your team. You don't have to tell me all of your business, but typically it's someone maybe who's working and they've taken a job, but it's not what they love doing, right? Or they've said some things about their skills, maybe told a few fibs about what it is they were capable of, and they're not able to do that work. So my goal then is, as someone who cares about the person I'm developing, is let's develop you in a way to get you to where it is you really want to be going. Because I want you to be happy. And if it's not happy for us, be happy somewhere else where you can prosper and thrive.
So that's powerful. So I want to pivot a little bit and really get into this diversity, equity, inclusion with you. So I'm in Texas, you're in Georgia. So we both have come against where you're also facing it, where the state has the ban the diversity in DEI on a state level. So how have you worked through this, especially being in, because you're in a public college?
I am. Okay. So when I think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and this may not be popular, but this is my complete stance.
Okay.
I think, again, as you think about working across the aisle, there's much that can be accomplished if you think about how you're doing it and why you're doing it versus what we're calling it.
Right.
So equity, that term equity, is what people have difficulty with. Yeah. And they have difficulty because they don't think that we're equal. The people who have difficulty with the equity equation is they don't think we're equal. And you've got I talked to my mom about this recently. She is old enough that someone would have told her here in Georgia, you
Yeah.
can't drink out of that water fountain.
Yep.
And she's still in the workforce, which
Wow.
means that someone who would have told her, you can't drink out of that water fountain, is also still in the workplace.
Yeah.
And we have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
But then we also have our younger generation who are in the workforce with us, my age, maybe younger, who we may have all gone to school together. We had equal rights. We lived a different lifestyle, right?
Very
And
interesting.
so we didn't think that racism was an issue. And then DEI came out kind of full throttle during our lifetime and careers. And so you've got the younger generation who are saying, we never had slaves. We never did Jim Crow laws.
Right.
We didn't do anything to you. And
Right.
so as much as we love an ERG, that
Mhm.
resource group,
Yeah.
if whites are left out of it, they feel penalized, even
Right.
though they never did anything, right?
Right.
And
Hmm.
so as I'm looking at all of those things in the DEI spectrum, I'm wondering, do we just need to not call it DEI and just make it leadership development? Because here's the thing, if I present DEI to you in a way that I say, we need to work on our risk management issues here at the office.
Hmm.
Um, these are the things that companies are getting sued for versus these are the things that they're not getting sued for if they've got these policies in place. I'm not saying DEI, but am I doing DEI work? Absolutely. If I say to you, I would love to be able to create a mentorship program that allows women and children and African Americans to garner greater leadership roles. I think we have some great opportunities by looking at people like Allison here in our company.
Right.
I haven't said DEI.
Nope.
That's leadership development. And
Nope.
so companies understand those things because they affect their bottom line.
Yep.
And so do we die on the DEI sword of
Nope.
it's got to be called this? Or do we create healthier environments? And so again, for those who are, DEI fanatics, they may disagree with taking the title from but if we're moving forward with the right processes, are we not garnering the same leverage? And so that's kind of where I sit in my DEI thinking.
I love that. So I'm going to share a story with you because you've hit the nail on the head for me. So I'm from California originally, San Diego, and I can honestly say, growing up in San Diego, I feel like we're very open. California, period. I almost think we're hippies sometimes, but we're just very open. I decided to do an exchange program for 1 year, and I went to Tougaloo. So I had never been to a HBCU. I went to a PWI for all of my college life. And someone convinced me to go to Tougaloo for 1 year. Oh man. And I had never seen that many African American people in my life, being from California and San Diego for that. And then even going to college in LA. But that experience opened me up to a whole different side of the world where I actually experienced racism, where I had never experienced it before. And I remember driving to University of Southern Mississippi, needing to use the bathroom. And I went to this particular restaurant to try to use the bathroom. They wouldn't let me in. And I called my parents crying because I was like, you guys didn't tell me the world was like this. And I was just so shocked because I'd never experienced that, where this Caucasian lady would not let me come in and use the bathroom. She's like, no, you can't come in. You can't use our establishment. So I had to figure out another way to go. But if you're like me, right, where you never really experienced it, but you've heard from others and your family members that have had experienced some form of racism or bias or anything along those lines, it was such a humbling and like an experience. And that was, I think I was like 19 when that happened. So that I've carried that with me as to tell my daughter, hey, everybody doesn't love you, and it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter the color of your skin. It's just know that you live in a world where everybody is not going to love you, but that still doesn't take away from who you are at your core and how you show love.
Yeah, we've gone through some similar type things, especially at University of Georgia.
Yeah.
As I work with alums, I hear some of them say, my degree is well used, but UGA was not a great experience for me,
Mm.
and they have these heartfelt reactions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Polarizing almost.
Yeah.
Did I have any racial experiences in Athens at UGA? I absolutely did. I
Yeah.
had a roommate that moved out simply because I was Black. She didn't want to live with me because I was Black.
Wow.
But what I also had was opportunities um, that I don't know that I would have gotten at any other institution. I
Right.
was able to sit under advisors who taught me negotiating, and I worked with our university union department that brought all of the African American talent to
Yeah.
campus. And
Yep.
so I learned what working with celebrities and how do I say, I never would have had those experiences had I not been a part of that particular sect of campus. And so I had to do some soul searching with that and realize, well, the university is not responsible for what happened with me with that roommate. They probably don't even know that she did that. If I wanted to be victim or have victim mentality, I could have said UGA was a horrible experience for me. I experienced racism. People
Mm.
wouldn't sit with me on the bus because I was the only African American on the school bus. There were those things,
Yep.
but we have to put them in their proper place. Those were things that happened with specific individuals
Yep.
who probably had never interfaced or had to interface with African Americans, Black people at all in their lifetime, and they just happened to go to UGA. It
Mm.
doesn't mean that UGA was a bad experience.
Yes.
And so I think we have to really reconcile carefully what we're saying is our experience and not accusing a institution or a state or a political party as one particular way when really it was just that individual that did that to you.
Yes. So I feel like so there's you're flowing with me. I love it now. So that was intentionally brought up because I feel like we're in a climate now where we deem everyone bad based off of one individual, not understanding that the key word is individual. And I think you touched on that, but can you go a little bit deeper for me, Miss?
Yeah, we love to categorize.
Yeah.
I want to dump everybody in and say, everybody in Atlanta is gay. Everyone in Texas is country,
Yes.
and wears boots. Or we love lumping things together.
Mm.
And there's actually a process that's happening nationwide right now, and it's called One Small Step, or OSS.
Mm.
And I love it because they are bringing people together nationwide to have conversations who never would have had the opportunity to speak to one another. So Google that when you get a moment. One Small Step, again, is the name of that organization. And it's to show us that we're more alike than we are different. And I
Mm.
think that particular movement is one that's incredibly helpful in a time that we've seen polarization due to who's in office, in politics, due to social media being kind of where we're getting our news. We're so click heavy on what's trending right now. We're figuring out how we're supposed to feel about things and lump things together based on what we're seeing that's happening in front of us on our phones every day.
Mm.
And I think we've really got to pull away from that. I love social media for what it does for us for work and
Yes.
for what messages we need to get out there. But the same way that it's incredibly helpful to some industries, it's incredibly harmful to others, where there's so many people who are really determining what they think, what they feel, what's happening around them based on what's being pushed out as propaganda.
Ooh, that's powerful. And I think this is why, so I'm going to talk about the power of LinkedIn because this is how we were able to connect. I am a huge, my daughter calls me a LinkedIn warrior, but I am a huge believer in LinkedIn is a platform where you can really cultivate your personal brand and really showcase what it is you stand for, what it is you believe for. And that's either public, private, corporate institutions. That's across the board. That's for everyone. And I definitely think it's important to have some form of a stance, especially on platforms like that, in making sure that your messaging and how you show up is truly who you are. And we kind of touched on this, but I definitely want to go deeper in the importance of your character matching who you say you are online. And that's not just from a corporate standpoint. I think that can go across all industries.
Well, it's interesting because I think what LinkedIn, I like LinkedIn because it's just a positive space,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
or at least maybe it's because of who I'm following. What comes up in my feed usually is the best of what's out there.
Wow.
I It's not the same as a Facebook platform or Twitter or X. I think it's X now, and Instagram and TikTok and all of these other places where people are allowed to just kind of
Say
have
that.
free reign and put whatever they want out. It feels strategically more professional,
Yep.
in my opinion.
I agree.
Um, which gives us the opportunity to network like you and I have done.
Yes, ma'am.
I also think that LinkedIn allows for people, for example, who are closer to graduating from college to create a framework for themselves for where they would like to go. So they can kind of envision the future they'd like to have and have their LinkedIn profile match
Yep.
what it is they are looking forward to doing, and then interacting directly with influencers, tastemakers,
Mhm.
decision makers in those particular fields. So I
Yes.
love that you're able to do that as well. Um, there are some folks who maybe fudge a little on what it is that they're able to offer, and I think you find that a lot of the time with your college graduates or those who are getting ready to graduate, because they're trying to connect in a way that they seem worthy of
Yeah.
being picked up by someone. And so um, it's my hope that for those of us who are further along in our careers, that we're being very honest about what it is that we're putting forth as our image and our likeness. Um, I think that LinkedIn is what it says it is. It gives you the opportunity to showcase your craft, but it also gives you the opportunity to learn more about your craft through the trainings that are available if you take advantage of them on the platform, but then also through the ability to, if you're at a particular level or you're identified based on the kinds of postings that you're doing, I get tapped all the time to ask to respond to a particular piece of commentary or to write an article, or to upgrade my status in some kind of way because I'm identified as someone who's eligible to do that. And
Yeah.
so I'm not sure what the algorithm is that
Mhm.
puts you in those places, but I'm really grateful. I think it's a wonderful experience if you tap into and use it for the full leverage of what you're able to do there.
So,
Is that
so
answering the question that you had?
yes, yes, because now I'm going to go into thought leadership. So that positions you, which I already thought you were, like, I know you're a thought leader, but it's good to be recognized on a platform where they're reaching out to you for your expertise. And I had did a whole piece on the importance of thought leadership because people are looking for experts. And if you identify as such, you're more prone to get opportunity because you have positioned yourself as such.
That's absolutely true.
Yep.
Absolutely true. Um, there are people that find me all the time. And again, I think it's algorithm. I know it's algorithm.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, and so that speaks to a lot of how you're positioning yourself on the platform. Do you have the right keywords, buzzwords that are going to put you in the algorithm? Are you posting about, and I'm a firm believer in a hashtag. I still love a hashtag because they work. The
Yeah.
hashtags are how you get into the feed for what it
Mhm.
is that you're interested in, involved in, passionate about.
That's awesome. And I agree with you. So another like a topic I definitely want to touch is the fact that you're an accomplished author. And I feel like I would be remiss if we didn't go into that because there's a lot of women out there that want to write books and men. So tell us about your journey with that. And I want to congratulate you first because that is an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah. So my line sister, I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta. The red was not intentional today, but
And the cream wasn't
comes
either.
up, it comes out. But my line sister reached out to me years ago. She was finishing her dissertation,
Mm,
and her committee had asked her, what are you going to do next? And she said, well, I think I would like to write a book. And I'm the line sister who, my degree is in English.
Yep.
I'm always reading, I'm always writing. I was the first person that came to mind for her. And she said, let's write a book together. And so we were coming up on what was about to be our 100th anniversary for Delta Sigma Theta. And we said, well, let's write something related to that. And if you'll remember back then, reality TV had kind of taken over. It was very heavy. You were seeing a lot of folks fighting online, or on TV or on those shows. And sisterhood just seemed to have taken a deep dive. Like it just wasn't in a seemingly great spot nationwide for what was being put out to the masses.
Right.
And so we said, well, let's write a book about sisterhood and let's get 20 more ladies to tell their stories and make an anthology that we're showing what it looks like to unify, that women can work together, that we can put something positive out there. And so we had a niche audience because we knew, of course, this would work for Delta, but then we also thought, let's not have it be limited to just that. Let's write stories that any woman can pick up our book and really get a sense of what sisterhood means. And so there's stories, for example, I wrote a poem to my baby sister who's not Greek at all, because she's the first I knew of sisterhood, right? And then there are folks who wrote about the commonalities of sisterhood that come out of shared experiences like surviving cancer.
Yes.
And in the workplace. And so we really challenged ourselves with, you had to be a Delta to be an author, but let's really create something that women everywhere could benefit from. And so that was my first entryway into being a published author. And that project, certainly a labor of love, was picked up by our sorority. We traveled with Delta authors on tour for many years. The late, great, legendary Ruby Dee, who was also a member of Delta Sigma Theta, wrote our foreword for that book. And because she liked what we were doing, she added one of her poems to the collection. And I think that may have been one of the last things she did before she passed away.
Wow.
And so as we made traction, we thought the way to really honor her is to create a scholarship in her name. And so we still, to this day, as a matter of fact, we're going through right now, we just received the applicants who are vying for that title this year. And we're getting ready to select/announce the winner of the Ruby Dee Legacy of Sisterhood Scholarship. We work with her family every year. We determine who the finalists are, and we allow her family to choose the actual winner each year. And so there's a wonderful partnership that we've created in that way. And so it's just been a labor of love. And then beyond that, I also have a devotional that I wrote, Spirituality, If You Can't Tell. It just kind of runs through me. I love the Lord, and I feel that I'm called according to his purpose. I'm not a minister, but I believe that I'm called to live my life in ways that honor him. And devotionals have been really key to my morning ritual, my meditative experience. And so I wrote one myself that I hope blesses other people and takes them along the same journey that I found to be so beneficial for my life.
I love that. I love that because it shows how multifaceted you are. And I love that you don't allow yourself or anyone to put you in a box. I think that's powerful because there's so many different versions to us. And you have learned to touch all of the things that make you who you are. So I think that's powerful.
Well, the Bible says all things work together for the good of them. And so we're allowing all things to work together.
I know that's right. So as we come to a close, tell us what you're working on. How do we find you? And just how do we support your work? Because we didn't get to talk about your philanthropic side. So that speaks to that's my heart posture. Like philanthropy is so important. So we'll definitely have to bring you back, but you can definitely speak to that, Ms. Wells.
So yeah, we're absolutely philanthropic. I am on multiple boards now. I started off just with arts and sciences, but I'm on multiple boards now with the University of Georgia. They like me a little bit over there, and creating opportunities for students to advance. I think I still believe that old song, the children are our future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Teach them well and let them lead the way. But some of them have challenges. They have challenges with finances. They have challenges with um, who they're connected to, or being connected in ways that allow them to move forward. And so I really like to create opportunities for that. It's a whole other podcast, but I believe in mentorship. But
Yep.
I believe in mentorship along with sponsorship, because they are key. They have to work together.
Yep.
Um, my goal, the thing that I've got on the horizon that I'm pulling together resources for at the moment is, I raised my son as a single parent by choice. And there were times I remember that there were summer opportunities, or even during the school year opportunities, that I made too much money for him to be a part of, but I didn't make enough for him to I'm sorry, I made too much money to be supplemented for him to be a part of so that he could go, but I didn't make enough to send him on my own.
Right.
Or I didn't get off at 12 noon to pick him up. And so he had to not have those particular experiences. And so what I'm invested in right now is creating those same experiences at that same level for the demographic of folks who, again, make too much for benefits or supplements or sliding scales, but don't make enough to pay the absorbent amounts that are required for those experiences for their youth, or who don't get off at 12 noon, so they wouldn't be able to pick their child up if they could indeed afford it. They didn't have the resources in whatever way, whether they were financial or transportation or what have you.
So I
So
think,
that's my goal for the earth. I think that's what I'm called to do. That's my mission, to
okay.
find something that perplexed me when I was going through it and make it easier for someone else.
Yes. So I am in a like-minded mindset with you. What I have found, so I have a 17-year-old that's graduating a year early. Um, that made this her decision to graduate a year early. And she got a partial scholarship for athletic training. But I too am a mom that has been kind of successful in the corporate world, whereas money wise, where she doesn't qualify for certain things. So I've been a single mom her whole life too. So coming up with options for those parents like ourselves who can't necessarily afford or have the means to afford somebody to go and look for scholarships for their children to make sure that they can get their universities for free. And then to reward those children that are academically sound, willing to push themselves beyond their own limitations, because I feel like there's no really space for them to be rewarded when they choose to graduate early, or they choose to be a success, or they choose to go down a certain pathway. So sign me up. Sign me up, because that's near and dear to my heart. Especially seeing her, and I've seen the success of your son, so you've done an amazing job. But the fact that we've got to change that narrative that being in a single parent home means you might not, I don't want to say fail, but it's still something looked at as a negative thing. And I know, like yourself and myself, and I know other women who are doing it and have done it, and our kids are great success because of it, and they're not missing a beat.
But there were some really wonderful, wonderful opportunities that his classmates sometimes had the opportunity to be a part of, that we just had to say, either we can't get you there or get you back,
Right.
or we can't afford to spend that much and do travel ball or whatever else it was. We had to
Yep.
make choices. I
Yep.
want to put families in a place where they don't have to make those choices if they don't need to.
I'm with you. So my aunt always tells me, Allison, she's like, the cause has to be greater than you for it to be a cause. She's like, God doesn't send you to just do something that is only going to help yourself. She's like, so I'm a huge proponent, and I know you being in communications, PR, understand the importance of storytelling, because this is just not our story. This is probably millions of women across the union, and men,
Yeah.
who have this same
And
story, and have the same story of how they wish they could, but didn't have the resources, the time, and the things that they need to really get their kids to that next level and just continue to add on to their greatness.
We've got work to do.
Amen. Hey, if it's not big, if you take up a cause, we're gonna do it. And we got our lane. So Miss Wells, as we end They Say, I always like to end They Say with a They Say moment that you've had in your life. So if you need me, I'll explain it just a little bit. Most people are like, well, what does that mean, Allison? So I'm all about defying the odds. I feel like many people say that you can't do things. And instead of letting it be a negative thing, let it be the fuel to turn into something greater. So have you ever had a They Say moment?
So many. You asked me too. I got so passionate and wrapped up in what I was working on. I didn't say where to find me. I am available on all platforms at I am LD Wells.
Yes.
Again, that's I am LD Wells, all the platforms. They say that if she is a single mother, if she is starting out with a negative or, something that's detracting from her ability to provide, if she is raising a son as a female, there are reasons why she may not be successful. Mm-hmm. They say that those are the statistics.
Yes.
I am a living witness that you can purpose for yourself and for your family legacy that will supersede anything that you ever dreamed and that the ancestors would be proud of. That's what I say.
We can end it right there. That was, you almost made me cry. That was powerful. Guys, thank you for tuning into this episode of They Say. When Queenie, my favorite big sister, sent her to me, it was magical. So I'm grateful. Thank you, Queenie, because this was just, we're going to take over the world. I always look for people that want to take over different pieces of the world with me. And this is such an intentional time. And I thank you for giving us your wisdom, your knowledge, being open to share. We talked about so many different topics that I feel like, we've got to run it back because there is a huge proponent that's missing, and people understanding that sponsorship and mentorship go hand in hand. And that is a whole They Say on itself, where you can't have one without the other, but it can be two different people. But just understanding the importance of why you need both, especially in the world today. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your influence. I thank you for your knowledge. And this has been another dynamic and powerful episode of They Say. And I look forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday. Again, my name is Allison McFarlane, founder and CEO of Allison McFarlane Inc., your personal branding expert. And we hope that you have a fantastic Wednesday. Take care.